What's up? Welcome to, this is just kind of an update video or review video. It's just a video. My name is Caleb Haig. If you don't know who I am the director of Pronomian.com. It's my blog spot. And recently we've been going through a study on covenants, and I don't know, I think I'm kind of done with that. If there's more that you want on that, or if you have questions, then by all means, I'd be happy to answer those. But I think we're going to move on. So a couple of things have gone on recently, and I just kind of wanted to talk about them. And I wanted to also talk about what I'm thinking about doing, at least for my supporters, those who support Pronomian.com. I'm not sure if I'm gonna make this public or not, but make the study public. I'll talk about that first. So basically what is happening is I get asked probably about once a month, well, more than that, probably every other week. I get asked about resources for bar or bat mitzvahs or coming of age or something like that. And so if you don't know what a bar or bat mitzvah is, most people do, but if you don't, it's just a coming of age in Jewish culture. And so there's all sorts of traditions that Jewish traditions that surround that coming of age. There are coming of age ceremonies in all sorts of different cultures, and so for those of us who are more in the church and not necessarily in Messianic Jewish synagogues, I think it's important for us to have some kind of coming of age for our children. And I'll explain that. I think the reason why is because I think that we should prepare our children to take on more responsibility, to enter adulthood in some way, shape, or form. Usually coming of age ceremonies happen sometime in between the ages of 12 and 16, and I think that that's a good age. And so really the question is, no matter what your tradition is going to be, whether you're going to do a bar or bat mitzvah, whether or not you're going to do a different kind of coming of age ceremony, whether you're going to make your own up, whatever it may be, what resources do we have for those? And the answer is that it's kind of few and far between when it comes to resources like that. And so in my normal fashion, if I don't find something that I like and want to use for my family, I just make it myself. And so that is how a lot of the products that I've created have come about, and a lot of the resources that I've created have come about, is that I'll need something for me or my family, and so I'll make it, and then I make it available to everyone else. And so I've started a book for coming of age. I don't know what I'm going to call it. I don't know much about it yet, but I've written 3 installments for it already. And basically what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to take those pages and I'm going to use them with my children. I'm going to use them. My son is now 10, almost 11, so we're going to get started. And I figure that could take up to 10 or 2 years, 10 years. I hope not. Could take up to 2 years to get him to the place where I'd want him to go through a coming of age ceremony. And so I'm a real big believer in trying to utilize what I'm doing for multiple different outlets. And so since I'm writing something for me and my son, I figure that I should share it with people as well, and they can give me insights. So the first installment that I did, I actually already went over it with my son and actually my entire family. And my wife, many of you know Lakeisha. Lakeisha said, well, I think that this is far above a 10 or 11-year-old's grasp. Now, I tend to push my kids to places above where I think they are, so that I think that's the best way for them to grow. So I agreed that it might be a little bit over younger people's heads. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an associated workbook for younger children. And parents will be able to determine whether or not they want the adult workbook to be read to their child and use that, or whether or not they want the younger child's workbook to fit with their child. And that's totally up to you. And I don't know how that's going to work yet, because I'm going to have to be writing both at the same time, but I'm going to try to figure it out. Anyway, not the point. So all of that to say, I think what I'm going to do is once a week, I will probably come in and make a video, and I'll just read my next installment pages and see what you guys think. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to make it public to everyone or if it's just going to be for my supporters. But maybe I'll make the first couple available to everyone and see if it's anything that people want, and we'll go from there. So I'll probably start that next week, and you'll at least be able to. Everyone will at least be able to see the first one. Okay, so two more things in this video. I wanted to share a book that I recently got done reading, and I thought that this was a really interesting book. I thought it was a really good book. I would probably give it 4 out of 5 stars, and the reason why is because the authors tend to, I don't know if they believe in JEPD theory, I can explain that in just a second, or if they are just attempting to speak into the scholarly world, which the majority would probably take a JEPD theology. And so what is JEPD? JEPD theory believes that the Torah, the first 5 books of Moses, was actually written by 4 different authors. They split them up into, I think it's Jehovah, Elohim, P is for priest, D, and D is yeah, I don't know. That shows you how invested I am in the theology. I don't hold to JEPD theory. You'll hear it spoken of quite a bit. Yeah, and within the scholarly world, and you'll hear things like, well, the author of P wrote this, or as we know, the author, or, P likes to write like this. They're talking about the P in the JEPD theory and whatnot. So since I don't hold to that, I don't put a lot of weight into it. However, some scholars are going to say that it was written by 4 different authors late in like the 700s. However, there are some who are more conservative who would say, well, actually, what happened is Moses died, and then they came over into Israel, and then there was multiple people who helped kind of write down what had happened and the law that Moses had given, and that's how you get JEPD. I actually don't ascribe necessarily to any of those theories. I believe that the Torah was predominantly written by Moses and maybe edited and or compiled by Joshua later, or maybe another source, but ultimately, I don't think that means that Moses didn't write the Torah. So I believe that Moses wrote the Torah. That's the end all of that. So with that aside, that's why I wouldn't give this book a 5-star rating. However, I will show you the book, and then I'll talk a little bit about it and why I think it is such a good book. So here's the book. This is on Amazon.com. It's called Everyday Law in Biblical Israel, an Introduction. And you can buy it paperback, $21.85. You get it on Kindle for $20.76. It's currently on sale from $31, and it's done by Raymond Westbrook and Bruce Wells. Now, I don't know these authors personally. However, I'm getting to know their work because of what they did in this book. So let me describe the book real quick, and then you can decide for yourself if you want to read it or not. The thing about this book is that for someone who's not fully invested in the study of God's law, it's probably going to be a little bit dry for you. I didn't find it dry at all. In fact, I found it to be, I thought it was a page turner. I thought it was really, really very interesting. Basically what they do is they take different law codes from around the ancient Near East, dating all the way back to 2000 BC, Hammurabi's code, other Babylonian codes, things like that. So they're taking various law codes from communities that surrounded Israel. And then what they're doing is they're comparing those law codes to the Torah itself and the laws found in the Torah. And what they're doing is they're showing how not only the Torah influenced others, but how other surrounding communities also may have influenced law within that region. But also that the laws of the Torah are not necessarily they're not so far out there in terms of they're not all specifically like 100% unique to Israel. There is a standard by which a lot of the surrounding nations in that time period also held to many laws that are the same. And so what it does is it compares these laws and shows where Israel stands out as different and where Israel is maybe lines up with a lot of the standardized law in the surrounding areas. And so what it does is it also kind of explores some of the laws of Torah, of God's law, and how these things were maybe enacted and how the surrounding nations enacted them as well. And so ultimately, if you're, obviously, and I'll even bring up my splash screen here. As you can see, I put the tagline on this splash screen dedicated to the study of God's covenants and law. If that's something that interests you, and if you've been following the work of Pronomian.com, then I really do think that this book is one that you'll find interesting. Like I said, clearly they are coming from a JPD theory, or if they're not, then at least they are factoring that in so that scholars will be able to use the book as seamlessly as anyone else. If you don't believe in JPD theory like myself, it's not a big deal because you can pretty much get the exact same, thing out of the book as you would otherwise. So I can set that aside and say that I don't think it's really that big of a deal that they mention JPD every once in a while. With that said, I think that the book is actually really well done. This is one of those books that I will probably go back and reference from time to time when someone brings up specific laws. And so I think it's worth having on your shelf. And it's really short. It's not a long book at all. Let's go back to this right here, 168 pages. So I would not say that it's a quick read. And the reason why is because it's heavy. And you're exploring a lot of Babylonian law code and whatnot, and then comparing it to the law. So anyway, I think it's well worth having on your shelf, or specifically, I have it in my Kindle library. And it's definitely worth having in your Kindle library. If you don't want to take up shelf space, then definitely get it for Kindle. Okay. The last thing I'm going to say in this video is I was interviewed recently by a Christian media, a Christian news source. Now, I had never heard of this news source, and that's neither here nor there because I don't follow a lot of Christian news. But they're doing, so the woman who interviewed me is doing a story on the Torah movement. And so she really wanted to know, specifically, she wanted to know the history of the Hebrew roots movement or the Torah movement. Now, she had not realized maybe the vast, the roots that go all over the place that lead to different places if you're going to talk about the broad Torah movement. So it was my objective to kind of give the history of the Hebrew roots movement, give the history of the Messianic movement, kind of talk about the term pronomian and what that is, and then answer any questions she had. Now, anyone who knows me, once I get talking about theology and someone has specifics that they're trying to pinpoint, I could talk for days, and you don't really have to ask any questions. I'll just keep talking. So I think she was a little bit blown away by the amount of information that I was just spewing at her during this interview. And I don't know, I kind of assume that what will happen is, maybe the hour and a half long interview that I did will get boiled down into maybe a sentence or two, and okay, that's fine. But she asked me a very interesting question. And the question was, she said, you seem very passionate about the Torah and, about the law, about God's law. Why is this the hill that you've decided to stand on? Why is this something you're so passionate about? And in the heat of the moment, I gave some, one-off answer, something that probably should have been thought through more. And the reason I think that is because as I walked away from the interview, I did think about it more. And I thought a lot about that. And I think that there is always how we grow up and the places that we come from, they always influence the way that we think and our motivations and things like that. So there's no denying the fact that my father went through a life-changing theological shift when I was young. When I was 6, 7 years old, my father found out he was Jewish by blood. That took him down this rabbit trail of trying to find his heritage, but at the same time, it had him starting to ask questions about the Sabbath and why he wasn't keeping the Sabbath, and the festivals and why he wasn't keeping those things. And as he started to shift theologically towards keeping these commands of Torah, his theology started to shift towards, shouldn't all believers be doing this? And I saw the battles that he was fighting. I saw the hills that he was defending and fighting on. And I think that it certainly gave me a want to defend the same thing. So there's no denying that is a place that has influenced me in my want to defend the law, for Christians to be keeping the law. But, as I've come into my own adulthood, and as I've started raising my own family and have tried to lead my family theologically, I really, really have come to a place of understanding David's words when he says, "Oh, how I love your law." And as I see society around me fall deeper and deeper into sin and into complete nonsense, there is this rock that I'm holding on to that has not only kept me and my family. It's not only kept our heads above water, it's taken us completely out of that water, and we're on this solid ground. And I think that has really motivated me, because it's something that I've seen in my own life that has really anchored me in my faith, but also in my life. And then all of a sudden, I was reading the other day, and I read Joshua 1, and this passage came before me, and I just thought, yes, that's why. That right there is why. So I'm going to kick over here to my Bible, ESV. This is what he says in 7 and 8. "Only be strong and very courageous, being careful to do according to all the law that Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may have good success wherever you go." It's interesting that he says, wherever you go, right? Wherever you go. So does that mean outside of the land? Does that mean in the USA? Does that mean in Canada? Does it mean in South America? Does it mean in Europe? Of course it does. Wherever you go, you anchor yourself to the Torah, and you're going to have good success. "This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way, then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened, and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." So, this is one of those passages that is not cited very often by the Torah movement at large. And when I say that, I am encompassing all people who want to keep the biblical festivals, the Sabbath, kosher laws, and anyone who knows me knows that I am probably the first to say there are many different groups with many, many different theologies and many histories. So we can, I normally don't like lumping all Torah observant believers together, because I think that there is some very heretical and errant doctrine. But if we just look at Torah observance as a whole for a second, and we think about the fact that God has given us a standard, he's given us his covenants and his laws, this passage really, really stands out to me. And it's one that I think that we should not only use more, but I think we should memorize it. And it's one that I have decided to live by. And I think it's one that so many others have decided to live by too. And so the text itself tells us, be strong and very courageous. When the church comes along and tells us, you don't have to do this anymore, to me, this has become just a ridiculous thing to say. You're right. I don't have to follow God, but I desperately want to. And it's not just a want to follow God. It's that I love, David was right. Oh, how I love your Torah. I love the Torah. I love it because it is a shining, it's a mirror of who God is. And so it is, it is a representation of who God is. And so to be able to walk after God and live like God in that way is something that I don't just want for myself and my family. I think that it is also something that every believer will benefit from. And it's not just, this is another misconception, I think. It's not just the Sabbath and the festivals and the kosher laws. All of the Torah has something to tell us. In Timothy, when he says that all Scripture is inspired and profitable for teaching, for correction, for reproof, right? Well, then all of the Torah is meant for that. And so we can gain something even from what we might think are minute laws. And this is one of the reasons that I really enjoyed this book, which is called, I'll give it to you one more time, Everyday Law for Biblical Israel. Okay. That's going to be it for this video. I'm going to come back next week, and I will share the first installment of this coming of age book that I'm putting together. And if you have any questions or if you have ideas of things that you want me to talk about, by all means, info@pronomian.com. It's info@pronomian.com. I take into consideration anything that you would want me to talk about, as long as it relates to the law and God's covenants, because that's really what my focus is and what this website's focus is. Thank you so much to all of our supporters. It really is amazing that the Lord has sustained us and is sustaining us more and more. But our supporters are really what allow me to make these videos and continue to do the work that I'm doing. So thank you so much. All right, I will see you next week. Thanks so much.